I took some milk out of the fridge to make a cup of tea, and then I heard his voice from the other room. "I'm not going to talk to you about family finances, that's not your concern," he said with such coldness that it felt like everything inside me froze. My husband, the person with whom I built my life, seemed to be joking, but I knew it wasn't a joke. Everything I do, my care and love, according to him, doesn't matter. A tightness formed in my chest. His words hit me hard. Every time he says things like that, my self-esteem drops. Why doesn't he understand that I'm trying to? While I'm on maternity leave, I'm not just sitting at home looking after the kids. I haven't felt needed for a long time, as if my life is just about routine chores. I remembered that evening when we sat together at the table, covered with a white cloth, lit by candlelight. His eyes sparkled with happiness. "To our happy future," he said, and back then, full of hope, I believed all our dreams would come true. We talked about how we would create a family, what our children would be like, and what traditions we would start. I felt that everything seemed possible during that romantic dinner. But now, remembering that evening, I faced the harsh reality. He doesn't see that I pour my heart into our future. Every small decision he makes pushes us further apart. I found myself back in this cold kitchen and felt bitterness. The more I try, the more he drifts away. Why can't he remember the love we began with? I wish he could feel the emptiness that fills my days. Being a mom isn't always joyful. It can also be lonely when your husband looks at you like just a duty. In this sea of feelings, I searched for support, but instead found only new waves of discontent and blame. On the table, unfinished tasks and unspoken words piled up. Sighing, I realized that I needed support, not just criticism. It's time for a change. I was sitting in the kitchen, staring at an empty mug, when he said something that made me flinch. "You've just been lounging around the house all day. You can't even manage our money properly." His words hit me once again, and I felt my shoulders slump under the weight of despair. It seemed like all my efforts to take care of the home and the child didn't matter to him at all. I was trying my best, but instead of support, I only heard accusations. My voice trembled when I replied, "But I work too, it's really hard. Taking care of our child and the house is a job, and there's a lot to do every day." He just rolled his eyes, as if my words weren't important. Each of his glances felt like a blow. Filled with frustration, I remembered how we used to go through the budget together, how we shared expenses and discussed every purchase. There was a time when we faced financial difficulties together, when we both worked on the family budget. I remembered how we sat at the table, surrounded by papers, writing down every dollar and dreaming about the future. We supported each other, genuinely believing we could get through anything. Back then, everything was significant. Our dreams, desires, and even our arguments. It felt like a real partnership. "You promised we would manage the expenses together," I said, trying to remind him of those days. His cold gaze stayed indifferent to my words. "Aren't you going to keep that promise?" He shrugged, as if our joint effort didn't matter. "I don't need to talk to you," he replied blandly, as if we hadn't planned that future together. I barely held back tears. Where was the person who supported me in tough times, the one who was my ally? With each of his words, I felt the ground slipping away beneath my feet. I realized that we were standing on opposite sides of a river, and no bridge between us could bear that kind of tension. In that moment, it became clear keeping the space where both partners truly contribute was no longer important to him. Only when he fell silent again did I understand that everything had changed. Inside me, a sense of despair was growing. I didn't want to lose him, but every conflict made me feel more worthless. It was time to face the truth. Even though these days felt endless, it might be too late for us if nothing changed. I was looking out the window, even though I didn't want to go outside. Autumn was coming, the leaves were turning yellow, and I saw that I needed to make a decision. My relationship with my husband no longer brought me joy. Instead, it made me sad. It became clear that I had to change something. or I would lose myself completely. It was a hard realization, but my inner voice told me it was time to look for a job. I contacted my former boss to talk about the chance of working from home. Although doubts washed over me, something new sparked inside, hope. It was my first step toward finding myself again, toward returning to a life I once loved. Every word from our conversation reminded me that I could do it. I had always been active and goal-oriented, and this job was my chance. As I packed my things, I knew that this night would be the last I spent in a house that once felt cozy. Fear and excitement flooded me, but with every bag I packed, my desire to stay faded. I could no longer tolerate his coldness and indifference. I was saying goodbye to what didn't make me happy, and that was my firm decision. Thinking about the time I got a promotion at work, vivid memories came to mind. My husband and I celebrated at our favorite restaurant. He proudly talked about my success, raising a glass and rejoicing with me. We dreamed of a future where we would support each other, bringing joy and happiness. In those moments, when we both encouraged each other in our ambitions, I felt like I could do anything. Now, as I prepared to leave, I returned to those memories. I saw how much I had lost, transforming from an ambitious woman into a shadow of myself. Going back to work wasn't just about wanting to earn money, it was a way to reclaim that part of me that always sought success and joy. I understood that I wanted to feel happiness again. After moving back into my old apartment, I felt my heart fill with light joy. Yes, uncertainty lay ahead, but it was better than staying in a place where only shadows lingered. I was ready for a new beginning, and it felt freeing. The decision was made, and now I stepped forward, confidently straightening my shoulders. Moving back into my old apartment marked the start of a new chapter in my life. I threw myself into work, and slowly, my confidence began to return. Working from home allowed me to invest a lot of energy into a passion that once inspired me. Every day, I celebrated new successes, and very soon, I got a small promotion. It was proof of my hard work. I felt my mood lift. With each project I completed, I was not only rebuilding my career, but also myself. Every morning, I had breakfast with my son, and those moments became little joys. I laughed at his playful antics, enjoying our time together. We had quiet evenings when we read books or simply looked at the stars through the window. I knew that it was these moments that created the atmosphere of love now filling my home. But soon, something unexpected happened. My husband appeared in the doorway, and my heart raced. He looked confused, as if he didn't know what to say. I noticed his gaze sweeping through the room, taking in all the changes. He couldn't hide his surprise and jealousy. "How did you achieve so much so quickly?" he asked, with insecurity in his voice. This meeting made me remember how we once dreamed of a future together. I recalled how we talked about what our home would be like, and how we would build a warm, happy family filled with support. Back then, it felt like we had a whole life ahead of us, and we were full of hopes for a bright future. Now those memories seemed tinged with loss. Instead of joy in working together, I had to find my own way. I felt everything changing. I no longer wanted to return to the world that once felt like home. When he looked at me, as if remembering old grudges, I realized the difference between what we once wanted and what I had now. I had my own dreams and achievements that I had revived within myself. Looking at him, I understood that I was no longer afraid of his opinions. My path doesn't depend on his unwillingness to support me. I deserve happiness and success. This new chapter gives me the freedom to be who I want to be. I'm not going to let him overshadow my achievements. Now, I can move forward, discovering new things, and I'm ready to reach for them. Now, looking back, I see how much I have overcome. Every step and every difficulty has only made me stronger. I found my strength, and that has become the foundation of my new goals. Work, confidence in myself, and the time spent with my son, all of this fills my life with light. I feel my true self returning. Memories of our laughter on the happy moments when we were both content sometimes wash over me. I can see us dreaming of the future, and it fills me with nostalgia. But now, thinking back to those days, I don't feel bitterness. The happiness we shared cannot compare to the confidence and freedom I feel now. I realize that true happiness isn't tied to people or circumstances. It's a state that I can create for myself. I didn't just cope with difficulties, I found a new path that is now solely mine. I am ready for new achievements and confidently look to the future, knowing that a wealth of opportunities awaits me.